unity. Cause they know we ain't stopping. And they know they got problems. And they ran out of options. If we know we got a problem, can't let it go unsolved. Great sign, Afrocentric Research, we seen them all. Farmers calm, I say what I say, I hear the wall. Till I see y'all fall off, then I bring y'all up on. I'm back up on my Clyde winners. Clyde winners, 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 define winners, Clyde winners, Clyde winners, Clyde winners. I'm with you, ride with you, master teacher, create master, Clyde winners, give respect to the elders, Clyde winners. Somebody out there looking for me. Yeah. I told you somebody out there looking for me. I think there's somebody out there looking for me. I think there's somebody out there looking for me.
I'll be and be one. I'll be. Hey, Deontay.
Population genetics articles. Many of these articles have appeared in peer-reviewed journals and online. His work has appeared in the Journal of Black Studies, Afrohistorie, Journal of African Civilization, Adolescence, International Review of Education, Thresholds in Education, Thiessen Record, Bioessays, International Journal of Human Genetics, and PLOS Genetics, to name a few. He has published over 40 books, including Atlantis in Mexico, The Mande in the Ancient Americas, We Are Not Just Africans, and African Empires in Ancient America. For more of Dr. Clyde Winters, check out Yoshimad Gumroad page, and that will lead you to the master himself, Dr. Clyde Winters.
What up, though? What up, though? How you doing, Dorvell? Thank you very much, man. Because this is not my night. This is not my night. This is like I said, this is a night that I really want to do something. Dorvell is one of the hardest working brothers in America. This brother is one of the experts in terms of etymology. He likes to study words. He likes to break the words down. And this brother's done a lot of research on, Black people in Europe and stuff like that. And what makes it very interesting is that when you got a brother like this, is that he's a pure researcher, and that's something that I really love about Dorvell, because he doesn't mind sharing knowledge. You'd be surprised. One of the biggest problems that we have today as Black people is that we have a lot of Black people who they want to hide knowledge. They want to keep the knowledge to themselves. How you doing, Natty? And TW? A lot of times, in a sense, they want to keep the knowledge to themselves, or they'll talk about stuff that they heard me or somebody else talk about and never get credit. And see, but that's the beauty. That's the beauty of people like Dorvell. Dorvell doesn't mind sharing his knowledge. He doesn't mind, in a sense, providing other people with knowledge so we can all grow. And that's what it's all about. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing tonight's show. Tonight's show is basically a show that I had no intention of doing until a couple of days ago, because one of the brothers, one of the members of my Patreon, he asked me about St. Patrick's Day and the role of Black people in it. And so then I decided I'd look into it. And when I looked into it, I found that it was very interesting. I found, in a sense, that St. Patrick's Day was a direct result of some of the turmoil, some of the trauma that the Black Irish was going through before around the same time that the first Black Irish people were sold into chattel slavery. When you think about chattel slavery, you had to remember that chattel means to be personal property. And so then those people who were involved in chattel slavery, when you became a chattel slave, that meant that you didn't have even the rights of an animal. Animals had more rights than chattel slaves, because there were no laws on the books for chattel slaves. There were laws, for horses, cows, other farm animals, because see, this in terms of their treatment had been litigated. But there were no laws originally for chattel slaves. And because see, a chattel is supposed to be personal property. That's something, in a sense, like a handbag or like a wallet, and because it's personal property, then therefore, in a sense, people could do just about whatever they wanted with their chattel, I had a little difficulty earlier playing my introduction, but I guess somebody's looking for me. And but the thing is that we're going to get this thing started, because I want to make sure that we can get through this. And it's a lot of slides. This is a pretty long presentation, but I hope you guys will stick with me, because what I want to do is I want to break down to you how and what happened. See, because we've been taught a lie, and this lie has been that we all came from Africa. Yes, hundreds of thousands and maybe even millions. I think it was more than, they say only 200,000. I think it was a few more than 200,000 sub-Saharan Africans who came here, but it was already millions of Black Aboriginals here already, and many of these Black Aboriginals, because of the fact, in the sense that we had this nationalism. See, one of our biggest problems is nationalism, and nationalism is just this whole idea that because I belong to this nation or this religious group, then therefore, I support it. It's just like if you go to a place like Chicago, you find about 20 gangs and stuff, Black gangs. They're always fighting each other. And that was the way it was with our Aboriginal ancestors. Yes, how you doing, Mike C? Yes, we were all over the world, Mike. But the point is this, is that even though we were all over the world, in Africa and in America, we made one fatal mistake. And what that fatal mistake was is that we fought each other. And then after we fought each other, we would sell each other into slavery to the European. But see, the European, you had people, in a sense, the French fought the British fought the French, and then they all maybe wanted to fight the Germans. And then for a while, the Germans, the British, they were fighting the French during Napoleon's reign. But the point is this. You see, the point is this, is that even though whites would fight each other, when it came to dealing with Black people, they would, in a sense, stick together. See, whereas Black people, we wouldn't stick together. We always saw each other. Okay, you belong to the Yuchi. You belong, in a sense, to the Seminole. You belong to the Yamasi. Or in Africa, you belong to the Hausa, the Igbo, the Yoruba. So I mean, hey, you're my enemy. And this has been our downfall. You see, that's one of the reasons why I'm always talking about being B1. And the reason I talk about being B1 is that it's only through B1 that we as a people can really have any independence. It's only through being B1 that we as a people will be able, in a sense, to become successful. How you doing, Kuya Kude? And the point is that this is how we began. And yes, it's so true. We still don't stick together, but see, it doesn't take a lot. But see, when you can have enough people sticking together, you can affect change. Think about what we did during the various movements, the Black Power movement. Look what we did, and just those people, in a sense, who were rioting. I got to college. Yes, I got to college because we burned down Chicago. Yes, you know. And the thing is, is that we have to understand. We have to understand that it's very important, in a sense, that we remember and we study our history. And that's what I'm going to do today. Today we're going to talk about, the Black Irish. And so I'm going to get started now because it's kind of a long thing, and because it's kind of it's very long. I'm going to try to get started now. It's a lot of slides, and I want to get the slides in within 2 hours. And since I want to get the slides within 2 hours, that's one of the reasons why we're going to be talking about this stuff now. It's very important when you talk about, whites hate that Black people found the St. Patty's Day. You may think that this is irrelevant, but it's very relevant. It is very relevant because, see, the thing is this, is that Europeans steal everything that we do. You see, everything that we create, everything that we begin, they steal it. And the reason that they steal it is because, see, they're very jealous. That's why, in a sense, is that, see, Black people, we're first frequency. Europeans, we allow them to be second frequency, you see. And so then, because they're second frequency, they always want to be on top. That's one of the reasons why they invented white supremacy, you see. Critical race theory teaches us several things. One, white people hate us. Number two, Black people want to kill us. Number three, Black people created racism. And they created racism because racism is a race. It's a race, you see. But it's a race between Black people and white people. But it's a race that they've established, and that they're going to make sure that if you participate in this race, you're going to lose. So they establish not only the playing field, they also determine the results. You see, as a result, as Black people, we always had to try a little bit harder. But also as Black people, they want to play a role. They want to have something. See, look at it. Look at these Europeans. You see, the Northern Europeans, the French, the English, all these people, they were ruled by us. They were ruled by the Moors for almost 1,000 years. We taught them how to clean themselves. We taught them how to create civilization. We want to taught them architecture, all those things. And so they have to come and they have to try to destroy us. But see, there's certain things that's very important to understand, is that the only reason I can talk about the Black Irish, I can talk about the Black Irish because, see, many Europeans, many people in Britain, when they looked at the skeletal remains of the earliest people in Britain, surprisingly, even in the 19th century, they were ready, in a sense, to put in their books and put in articles that the original people that lived in Britain were Black. You see, I remember back in the 90s and 80s, we read David McRitchie's Early and Modern Britons, but we didn't really think about that these people were Black. You see, and that he talked about these Black people, but we couldn't form a connection. And the reason we couldn't form a connection is because it wasn't time. Now is the time. Now is the time that we can get more understanding, more information. You see, many of our scholars, when they talk about us as foundational Black Americans, they fail, in a sense, to really teach us our history, because our history is not just limited to Africa. But see, the European has always wanted us to only think about Africa. He wanted us to think about Africa because he wanted us to believe that we were strangers in our own land. Yes, they wanted to make us believe that we were strangers in our own land. Do you know what that means? You see, and they were very successful in terms of getting us not to know who we are, what we are. But see, I decided that as a scholar, as a researcher, that I wanted to put a new shine on this. So then I not only, in a sense, began to research our Aboriginal heritage, Choctaw, I got Choctaw ancestry, but I also, in a sense, wanted to get that final ingredient. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's kind of get started. I already played my introduction. Go to my Patreon to see the slides, and please join my Patreon. I hope that you guys out there who haven't joined my Patreon will join my Patreon, because see, it's my Patreon that allows me to do this research. It's my Patreon in the sense that provides me with the funds to be able to buy new books that I need to do research. It allows me to get articles and newspaper articles that are behind a paywall. Yes, yes. Some of the best information that deals with contemporary information that deals in a sense with ancient times are published in these journals and these magazines and newspapers. But many of these journal articles and newspaper articles are behind a paywall. That means you might have to pay $39 to $100 just to be able to read an article for a couple of hours. You see, that's not even purchasing the article. But see, that's why I'm so happy that I have Patreon members who are supporting me. So I hope that you will maybe join my Patreon, help support me in my research to allow us to learn our true history and not a fake history. You're on my YouTube channel, Clyde Winters Afrocentric History. I have here over 300 videos. Over 300 videos on every aspect of Black history, you see. Look through these videos, and you're going to find many videos, and you're going to find videos in a sense that can help you to learn more and more about our past, about our civilization. Those people in my Patreon, I've written movie guides. And in these movie guides, what I've done is that I've organized certain movies into series. And these series of movies, they will allow you to be able to study various aspects of Black history. Join my Patreon so you can get that. And also, right now, why don't you subscribe and like this video? You can order my books at Amazon.com. Some of the books that can help you to understand, what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about foundational Black Britons. This is a term in a sense that relates to the original Black people who ruled in Britain, and that sadly, these Black people that ruled in Britain for thousands of years, many of them were sent into chattel slavery in the 13 colonies and in the Caribbean, Jamaica, Marquette, and other places. To find out more, get my book, Blacks in Europe, where I discuss, in a sense, the Baroda Acts, or the foundational Black British. My book, History of Blacks in America from Prehistory to 1877, is a comprehensive history of foundational Black Americans. But what I do is I try to explain in my book that we have a tripartite origin. What I mean by a tripartite origin is that our origin is not only, in a sense, not only Aboriginal, not only, in a sense, Sub-Saharan African, but it's also, in a sense, Black European. And, so get this book. Then my book, Manufactured Genetic Origins, the Fake Eurasian Back Migration. This book is very important because in this book, you learn that a lot of the stuff they teach you in relationship to the so-called genetic profile or the phylogeography of Europeans, it's all a lie. It's all a lie about Caucasians. Caucasians only came into Europe 1,000 years ago. In my book, Manufactured Genetic Origins, the Fake Eurasian Back Migration, I explained to you how Europeans came into Europe. I explained to you the genetics that relate to these people. And I explained to you that those people who are there referring to as the ancient Europeans are really Black people like you, Black people like me, Black people like us. Yes, whites hate Black people found at St. Patty's Day. What is FBA? Well, you know what? I'm an FBA, so let me tell you. FBA is not a group. FBA is not an organization. FBA is a lineage. A lineage is lineal descent from an ancestor, ancestry or pedigree. As a result, we are descendants of the African and Aboriginal Blacks who built the United States. B1 is acknowledging your Black African ancestry and mind, not heritage. We must be race men and women proud of our culture and Africans' Black ancestry. I often get emails from people and they're always talking about, Dr. Winters, why do you want me to identify myself as an adjective? Black is an adjective. Why do you want me to identify as an adjective? Well, the reason I want you to identify as Black is because the ancient civilizations of Black people, yes, the most ancient civilizations of Black people Ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt, in a sense, was founded by, in a sense, black people. And these black people, they, in a sense, called themselves black. Yes, the ancient Egyptians referred to themselves as Kametru, and they called themselves the black people. They called their land Kemet, which means the black land, you see? So don't ever try to bring that up to me, and don't ever try to tell another black person, don't describe yourself as black. When you call yourself a black person, a foundational black American, you're following in the tradition of the Egyptians who called themselves Kametru, Kameyu. See? And it was a black nation, and that was Kemet. So don't let these people tell you anything like that. It's because of the fact that we refuse to be B1, we refuse to be black first, that has allowed Europeans to control us, that's allowed Europeans to dominate us, that has allowed us to always be, in a sense, contrarians. And what I mean by contrarians is that we stay in a process of disunity because we refuse to recognize who and what we are. We have been taught a history of lies, a history where we are the victims of white racism. These lies teach us that we are people too weak to defend ourselves. They teach us, in a sense, that our only salvation, our only hope, our only state of being can only be accomplished through European supervision. That's a lie. We were, in a sense, ancient history. We are ancient history. We are history today. You see, American culture is foundational Black American culture. Yes, yes, yes. The food we eat, the traditions we follow, the music, the dance, culture, the language, the greatest speakers of the English language. Name one white great speaker of the English language from America. It ain't none. But we have many. Martin Luther King, excellent. Malcolm X, creme de la creme. And James Earl Jones, damn, he act like he invented English. Yes, yes, yes. This is because we are the culture. As a rule, under white supremacy, history is whatever white people say it is. Even though archaeologists have found ancient artifacts of Blacks, the white supremacists demand that you ignore what you can see with your own eyes and replace it with images they make up. FBA have been taught a fake history. We've been taught that the ancestors of foundational Black Americans were only sub-Saharan Africans. This was a lie. The ancestors of FBA were also Black Europeans and FBA Aboriginal Americans. I teach a research course so we can have researchers who write an accurate account of FBA history and culture. And I'm going to start another research class beginning April 16th. I hope some of you guys who want to contribute to expanding knowledge about African people, Black people, that you'll join the class. Foundational Black Americans need to know their authentic history and not a fake history. The fake history FBA have been taught is to make us believe we have always been servants and dependent on whites for civilization. This is false. The Black man or Negro created civilization. And it has only been since the Atlantic slave trade that the Black man has been dependent on Europeans for their survival. The white supremacists have lied about Black history to make FBAs believe our history totally lies in a faraway land, instead of knowing our roots are firmly laid in the United States due to the freedom our Black Aboriginal American and Black European ancestors enjoyed until white racism, murder, and genocide to take away the heritage of FBA. Yes, yes, yes. FBA views towards enslavement in North America promotes caves. Yes, it promotes caves. The things that we've been taught, these lies that we've been taught, it promotes caves. The letter caves mean culturally acquired, immune, identity deficiency syndrome. CAIDS has caused much destruction in the African American community. CAIDS is the psychological equivalent to the AIDS virus. This is an infectious mental illness that causes the individual to lose his or her immunity to white, second frequency mental domination of their mind and loss of identity, as noted by Joan Coramonte, a member of my Patreon. As a proud Black man or woman, due to acceptance of white supremacist tenets that Black historical and cultural values must be rejected in favor of feelings of inferiority, empty self-esteem, and being subservient to Caucasians. Cultural, historical values that manifest to harm African and Black people is generally what results from CAIDS. We must fight CAIDS. It's a pandemic out there. CAIDS has caused much destruction in the African and Black community. The aim of knowing your history is to strengthen your cultural awareness of Black and African people so they can have the self-confidence to fight CAIDS. Afrocentrism is the ideational code Blacks can use to conceptualize the universe in which they live and interact. Culture can be defined as man's learned, accumulated social experience, including man's art, belief, customs, knowledge, law, and morals that are transmitted and shared by a social group. In general, culture refers to a system of learned ideas, not what we do or make. Yes, yes, yes. The Black European ancestors of FBA came to the United States from all over Europe. Most Black Europeans came from Ireland, Britain, Germany, and Portugal. Benjamin Franklin in 1751, he was upset because he felt that the Germans were going to take over the state of Philadelphia. He said that he was going to do everything he could to fight the sons of Africa and their swarthy complexion. Yes, yes, yes. Swarthy means Black. And he wrote in an article in 1751, this is what he wrote. Why should Pennsylvania, founded by English, become a colony of aliens who will shortly be so numerous as to the Germanize us instead of our anglicizing them? It will never adopt our language, custom any more than they can acquire our complexion. Did you hear that? Complexion. Come on, let me go further. I'll continue. Which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world proportionably very small. All Africa is Black or tawny. Asia, chiefly tawny. America, exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes, we generally of what we call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans, also the Saxons only. Yes, yes. See, he felt that since he was a Saxon, he was the only white. Look right over there, you see a picture. This is a picture of a German soldier. Yes, yes, yes. See? Yes. Benjamin Franklin, on his list of Black nations, what did he say? Spain, Black. France, Black. Italians, Black. Russians, Black. Swedes, Black. Germans, Black. America, Black. Yes, yes, yes. But see, we've been taught in a sense that just because you see people living in a certain place today, then you assume those people have always been there, you see. We assume in a sense that North Africa was always full of white Arabs, see, and things like that. And see, because the fact in a sense that we fail to understand is that there's been changes over time, you see. But as you can see from Benjamin Franklin, these people in a sense recognized that they were Black and knew they were Black. Here you can see some people. And these people, these Black people, you can't tell if they were slaves, if they were regular just people, or if they were free. We don't know, because this was the way it was in colonial America. Ireland and Britain was originally ruled by the Black Irish. Yes, yes, yes. It was Black people who ruled Ireland. It was Black people who ruled Britain, you see. Ireland and Britain was originally ruled by the Black Irish. Lee Cummings, you may have read some of his books, And Lee Cummings, in a sense, he talks about, in some of his books, the fact that many of the early Americans were Black, Here he talks about the images of the three Black kings. And, it's dated to 1667. And when he talks about these Black kings, he tries to illustrate the King James, King Charles I, King Charles II. They were Stuarts. And you can look at it in a sense, the three kings that are at Ludgate in London. Look over there on the right-hand side. And this picture was done in 1667. And you can clearly see that these images of the kings show that Negroid origins. Look at those noses. Look at those lips. Look at the eyes. Look at the hair. Yes, yes, yes. These were Black kings, you see. And they were rulers of London. But you've been conditioned because every picture you see is of some pale person. And especially when they draw Queen Elizabeth, who was black, who was black as coal. When they draw Queen Elizabeth, they always show her being super pale, just to really highlight, in a sense, how they've lied to us, how they disguise history. Here you can see the original engraving of King James in the middle. Okay, in the middle you can see King James. On either side of King James, you can see these so-called representations of King James. You see, as you can see, the persons on the left and on the right, they look nothing like King James. King James was a brother. You see, he was black. You see, that doesn't mean that he was B1, but he was black. But again, to falsify history, to write us out of history, they give you these other pictures, to make it appear, in a sense, that King James and the rest of the worlds were white people. So they've done this. But see, this is just to show you some of the lies that they've done to be able to make you believe, in a sense, that how could in a sense Benjamin Franklin in 1751 writing that these various people were swarthy or black, you see, when you see all these pictures of these royals who were white, Caucasian, light skinned. But as you can see in this comparison of King James, the original picture, with the other representation of King James, you see how a lot of that has been falsified, how we've been taught a lot of lies, you see. On the left, we have the original engraving. On the right, the Afrocentric reproduction. Let's look at these pictures. It is clear in this comparison that white supremacists have rounded the face of King James and made his lips thinner. White supremacists rounded the face to make the nose longer. In doing this, white supremacists present more neck in their version of King James than is evident in the original engraving on the left. In addition, in the fake reproduction, the ear is slanted to accommodate rounding of the face. So you can see how they go through this whole process, lying to you. See? What did I tell you every week, family? Every week I tell you, in a sense, that we've been taught a crock of lies. You see, you have to do the research yourself. You have to go back and look at some of the original documentation. You had to go back and you had to read some of the original books if you're going to really understand what was happening in the ancient world. But they don't want you to do that. They want you to just look at what's on the internet today. They just want you to look what's in a popular book printed today, because they don't want you to do the research. That's why I teach my research class. Please, ladies and gentlemen out there, if you want to help present a true history, the right history of Black people, during my research class, let me teach you how to be a real researcher. Let me teach you how to be able, in a sense, to find the truth, and not only find the truth, but know how to turn that truth into articles and books so that you can share that with the rest of the family. Lee Cummings tells us that, and I quote, this is one of his books, The Negro Question, Part 7. He wrote, there's a picture of Lee Cummings over there on the right-hand side at the top. This is what he said. The only colony that was not founded by a Black Scottish Highlander king was the Georgia colony. I have to mention this in my conclusion to close any gaps that the government-sponsored scholar might use against the truth. The Hanover Kings were of German descent, and according to Benjamin Franklin's essay, the German Hanovers were a Black people. Benjamin Franklin wrote in this essay, I already read to you the essay, in 1751, and at that time, the Black German King George II was sitting on the throne of England, and that is a fact. The original translators of the King James Bible, 1611, made a statement in their introduction, and it reads, and I quote, so that if on one side we shall be transduced if they lie on us by popish persons at home or abroad, who therefore will malign us because we are poor instruments to make God's holy truth to be yet more and more known unto the people whom they desire still to keep in ignorance and darkness. Yes. See? Caucasians want to keep you in darkness. Caucasians want to keep you ignorant. See? But you can find the evidence, but you got to research it. Sadly, FBA are encouraged not to celebrate St. Patty's Day. even though many of us have Black Irish ancestry. Yeah. You start seeing some Black people say, celebrating St. Patty's Day. They say, oh, you want to be white. Oh, why do you want to be white? But I'm sorry to say, many of these people have an Irish ancestry. For example, my wife, her grandfather, he was an Irish Cherokee, you know, a Black Irish Cherokee, but he was Irish. So then, but I mean, she didn't go around celebrating St. Patrick's Day, but she could have if she wanted to. And there's many other people in America who have been able to do their genealogy to know that they had Black Irish ancestors. But then again, in a sense, they're afraid to really say this out loud because of the fact that people are going to tell them, oh, how could your granddaddy or great granddaddy be Irish and you Black as hell, you cold Black, you got nappy hair. You go what? That's why I'm doing this research. That's why I'm doing this presentation today, to let you know what was going on. Overall, the decision to make St. Patrick's Day a holiday in 1631 reflected the deeply rooted religious, cultural, and political sentiments of the Irish people at that time. It served as a way to honor their patron saint, celebrate their heritage, and assert their identity in the face of external pressures. Yes. See, the Black Irish, they were Catholics. The dominant people in Britain at that time, they were Black too, but the dominant people in Britain, the elites in Britain, they were Protestants. They were trying, in a sense, to Protestantize, everybody in England. They wanted to, in a sense, get rid of their Catholic kings. They wanted to get rid of these Catholic traditions because they believed more in Protestantism. Today, St. Patrick's Day is celebrated annually on March 17th, marking the anniversary of his death and honoring his contributions to Irish culture and spirituality. The day is observed with parades, church services, traditional music, and dance, and the wearing of green attire, symbolize the lush landscape of Ireland and the enduring legacy of its patron saint, St. Patrick. We are taught a fake history of enslavement in the USA. We have been taught a fake history in which the FBAs only came from African slaves. This is a big lie. This lie was taught to us to try to inculcate in us genetic cowardice. Yes. They wanted to inculcate in us genetic cowardice. What is genetic cowardice? Genetic cowardice is the inculcation of fear of white people while seeing other Black people as the enemy as a result of white supremacy. And they've done a pretty good job of it. Sometimes you'll find many brother fuckers or sister fuckers. And these brother fuckers or sister fuckers, these are people, in a sense, who try to bring other Black men, other Black women down, even though they can be a Black man or a Black woman, you see. But the point is this, is that hopefully most of us can be on code. And this code was developed by Neely Fuller. And then Neely Fuller taught us, in a sense, that when you operate off of code, then therefore, in a sense, you can have greater unity and you can have greater progress as a people. In African colonies in the Caribbean, whites were a minority. As a result, they served as lords of the land. They allowed their slaves to inflict punishment over their fellow slaves. That was in the Caribbean. That was in Africa. This ingrained in many colonized Africans and Caribbean people the idea that the white man was a demigod, all powerful, while the Black people who punished them as slaves or served in the militia in Africa were the real enemies. Yes. See, so they were able to inculcate in people in the Caribbean and people in Africa that the real enemy, it's not the white man. Oh, yeah, I own you, but I'm nice. I'm good. It's that Black man, see, that it's that Black driver who's whooping your ass. He's the one who's mean. He's the one who's evil, see. And it's inculcated in many Black people in the Caribbean. And it inculcated in many Black people in Africa a genetic cowardice. And as I define genetic cowardice, is that within them is the fear of other Black people. And they always feel, in the sense, that they have to keep each other down. And that the real enemy is the Black man. The real enemy is the Black woman, you see. But the European, he's white. The first chattel slaves were Aboriginal Blacks and Black Irish and Scotsmen. In the USA, there was a different organization of the slave plantation. You had the master, you had the white overseer, and you had a Negro driver. Yes, this is how it was organized over in America. This was different from the Caribbean. Thusly, the driver might administer punishment upon their fellow slaves, but it was clear to the rest of the slaves he was forced to administer the punishment. This arrangement resulted from the fact that the chattel slaves in the USA began as Aboriginal people, defeated in war by the settlers, or Black Irish and Scotsmen defeated in war after 1649 in Scotland and Ireland by Oliver Cromwell. As a result, the slave master could not count on Aboriginal and Baradanak slaves to punish their kinsmen. Baradanak, that's the name in a sense that was given to the original Black people who lived in Britain, who lived in Ireland. That's why when I say Baradanak, I'm talking about, the original Black people who ruled the land. The first sub-Saharan Africans that came to the USA were POWs, enslaved as a result of slave raiding. Yes, see, we have a tradition, all of us were POWs, Come on now. We are prisoners of war, but are nearly full of slaves. If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you, you see? And so then this is it, is that why do I study history? Why do I write history? Why do I come to you every Thursday? And tonight, Friday. But why do I come to you every Thursday? I come to you every Thursday because I'm trying to follow the ideas that Neely Fuller taught us in terms of how we must look at history. And what is it? He says that the purpose for studying Black history is not to find out how great you were. It is to find out what mistakes were made that got us in our current situation. Damn! Yeah. See? Yeah. That's why I want you to know our true history. See? And that can only come from original research. That can only come from going back and looking at the original documents. That can only come from learning various languages. That can only come from trying to be a real researcher. You see? This is what the white man likes us to see. It's always to go through a public humiliation, rape our women, you see? But now look at this. Every week I tell you this, Google slavery. And if you Google slavery, 80 to 90% of the pictures that's going to come up is of a white man whooping a Black woman's ass. Look at these pictures. Look at these pictures. If he wasn't raping our women, he was whipping them, beating them in front of the kids just to let you know you ain't ish. Just to let you know that they would do whatever they could to keep you down. Just to let you know you couldn't help your mama, couldn't help your auntie, couldn't help your grandma, you couldn't help your sister. That's why I tell you, white man can't love a Black woman. How can he love you when he been taught to disrespect you? A white woman can't love a Black man. How can he respect you? How can he love you when he been taught that you're nothing? When you went to a plantation back in the day, you either found a brother with a stake hammered through his anus all the way through his mouth, but you definitely found on every plantation back in the day. They don't tell you this, but the researchers show you this, babe. Whenever you went to every plantation, they usually had a brother's head on a pike, or they had a brother head hanging from the tree, and they would leave that head up there. They leave that head of that bad nigger, that bad Negro, that Negro that wouldn't stand up and let them beat him, that Negro who would in a sense rebel. They always had a rotten head, the head of a Black man on every plantation, see, to let you know that it was terror on those plantations. That's why we call, in a sense, slavery the ma'afa, the catastrophe, you see. But although it was a catastrophe, it also built us and made us who we are today. Again, Cummings claimed that the black kings were anti-slavery until King George III of Britain, who was a German, and he allowed slavery in Georgia. Of course, this is absolutely true according to Cummings. But King Charles, in a sense, he kind of played a role in terms of this, making some of the Black Irish, slaves and chattel slaves, and he was a Catholic too, so that was kind of shameful for him. The European ancestors of the FBA were descendants of the Black Celts and Moors that had lived in the British Isles for thousands of years. Other Black European ancestors of Afro-Americans, foundational Black American, were German, Dutch, and Portuguese. The first Blacks in the British Isles were small size. They represented pygmies called Twa and Anu. Davis Thurman in Crania Britannica said the Celtic people were short and dark. They noted that Scotland was full of these little dark and curly-haired people. Yes, yes! They put it in their books. They put it in their books that the original people who ruled the British Isles were Black. They never expected us, in a sense, to read those books. In fact, they knew we weren't going to read those books because they made it against the law in the Caribbean. They made it against the law in the 13 colonies to allow a slave to learn to read. Because if you could read, you would have read these books and you would have known, in the sense, that they were lying about their history. You would have known that they were lying about who they were. There were several migrations of Blacks to the British Isles. These Blacks would include the Khoisan, who were represented as the people associated with Chatham. The next group to enter the United Kingdom were the Anu. The Anu were represented by the small Blacks associated with Ireland and the Highlanders of Scotland. Yes, 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 this is what Dawkins tells us. Many of these Blacks lived in Britain as hunter-gatherers 4,000 years ago. Some of these Blacks not only had dark skin, they also had blue eyes, you see. Yes, yes, yes. What does it matter? I mean, it's Black people with blue eyes, but it's that melanated, they had the melanated skin, you see. Very important. We have to look at the real history of foundational Black Britons, not as slaves or servants, but real people with agency and purpose, beginning with Chatham. On the right-hand side, this is a reconstruction of the first Briton. Yeah, they call it first Briton, in a sense, Chatham. The first Britons were Black. This is supported by the reconstruction of the Chatham who lived in Britain 10,000 years ago. Take a minute and look at him. Chatham is Britain's oldest complete skeleton. He lived around 10,000 years ago, but by the time the Beaker folk came to Britain 4,400 years ago, the hunter-gatherers had long since gone. But these people who came to Britain at this time, they were Black too. Farmers migrated to Britain 6,000 years ago. They were the ones to replace the hunter-gatherers. They were replaced by the Beaker migration wave, roughly 1,600 years later. Yes, all these people were Black. They all left from Africa. They went into Europe. Because see, white people, they don't show up on the scene until 1000 BC. 1000 BC. See. Black people had already been living in Europe ever since 44,000 or 46,000 BC. And Black people were living in America as long ago as 130,000 BC. But white people, they only came to Europe 1000 BC. That's only 3,000 years ago. I bet you didn't know that, did you? The so-called Chatham Man is a Mesolithic skeleton discovered in Somerset in 1903. According to geneticists from the University College London at the Natural History Museum, Chatham Man had dark to ebony complexion, blue eyes, and curly hair. Mama Jamma. J. Rogers. He's a very important person. He wrote a number of books in the 1930s and 40s on Black people and around the world. Although Joel Augustus Rogers was largely self-trained, some of the most distinguished scholars of the 20th century have acknowledged our debt to him. Dr. William E.B. Du Bois, perhaps the greatest scholar in American foundational Black American or American history generally, wrote that, and I quote, "No man living has revealed so many important facts about the Negro race as has Rogers." You got to get some of his books, Sex and Race included. But see, whites, they already knew about foundational Black Britain history. Already showed you what they had written in the 1800s and the 1700s. You see, but the thing about J. Rogers is that he wrote about the Scottish people who trace their descent from Scotia, the daughter of an Egyptian pharaoh. Yes, yes, whose people first settled in Spain and then in Ireland. J. Rogers published in newspapers and in books many of his amazing facts. They were substantiated by subsequent writings on the topic. For example, read more about Sista of Egypt and the origin of Scottish people. The Pharaoh's daughter. You got to look at this. This is, J. Rogers wrote about this. Here's a book right here, The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles. This book was written by John L. Johnson. And this book is so interesting because he talks about all of these early rulers of Scotland. And in fact, they refer to their dynasty as the nigger, the nigger clan. See, the nigger dynasty. Think about it. So when Europeans, when they started calling us niggers, to use that as a derogatory term, what they were doing is that they were trying to make fun of the fact or denigrate the fact that the kings of Scotland, the longest ruling tradition of kings in Scotland, called their dynasty the nigger dynasty. See? But see, they don't want you to do that. But get this book, The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles, and it'll tell you more about that. Or you can get my book on blacks in Europe, Ancient and Modern. We know the ancient Britons were blacks, as noted by Roman historian Tacitus in 80 AD. This is what Tacitus wrote in 80 AD. He wrote about the Britons. He said, the dark complexion and the unusually curly hair of the Silurs, or the Black Celts in Britannia. Yes, yes, yes. Yes. You've been taught a lie. You've been taught a lie. You've been taught that the only black people that ever existed in history were slaves. But it's a lie. So we see that the original British 10,000 years ago were black. We see that the Celts were black. We see that the Romans were still, but by the time the Romans came, the British were still black. Get out of here. Get out of here. Knowledge is power. One of the first documented black rulers of Europe is the Bengal Lady of Britain. Her grave goods indicate her high status. Yes, they reported on this woman years ago, and they reconstructed her face. And this is one of the earliest. She's called the Bengal Lady of Britain. They found a lot of artifacts. When they made this picture, they had her surrounded by, black and white people, but it would have been mainly just black people. Maybe it was a few white serfs around. But again, in a sense, so you can see this roadie was a tradition, and I've already shown you King James, and King James is black, so you can see that it was continuity. It was continuity from 10,000 BC all the way down to the 1600s. The Black Britons of Baradanak were called Moors in the UK. The descendants of the Black Britons usually have the surnames Dub, Douglas, or Douglas, Black, Swarthy, Macduff, Dons, Browns, Black, Morian, Moore, Niger, Nigger, Rory, Roderick. Other evidence of the Negro origin of the Black Britons was the thick lips of many Britons, according to MacRitchie's, and the Negro Moorish coat of arms for many elite British families. Bear's Encyclopedia of Heraldica noted that, and I quote, the Moor's head is a heraldic term for the head of a black or Negro man. Due to mixing with the invading white Europeans, the Black Europeans, like the Gypsies, Scots, and Irish, lost their dark complexion. Yes, yes, yes. See, this isn't something new. David MacRitchie, he published his book, Ancient and Modern Britons, way back in the day. But see, the point is this, is that we didn't go and look at the other evidence to really see that these were black Irish. They always talk about how the Irish became white. And then the white people, then the so-called white Irish today say, oh, we weren't chattel slaves. That's all a lie. We weren't black. Yeah, of course, you're right. You weren't black. Yes. You modern Irish, you weren't black because you're not the original Irish. You're not the original Irish. You just took our names. The Vikings early invaded Britannia and later made their way to North America. Yes, the Vikings, they were black. The expansion of the Moors into Britain played a significant role in shaping the history and culture of the British Isles. During the Viking Age, spanning roughly from the late 8th century to the mid 11th century, Danish Vikings, often referred to as the Danes, were among the North seafarers who ventured beyond their homelands in search of wealth, land, and adventure. Yes. You've been taught that the Danes were Germans. No, they were not Germans. The Danes were Moors. Black people like you. Black people like me. Black people like us. Their incursions into Britain began with raids on coastal communities, but eventually evolved into large-scale invasions and settlements. Initially, the Moorish-Danish raids on Britain were sporadic and primarily targeted at monasteries and wealthy coastal towns. These raids intensified during the late 8th and early 9th centuries, with notable attacks on locations such as Lindisfarne and Jarrow. These incursions not only brought plunder and destruction, but also instilled fear among the local populace. However, as the Danes became more familiar with the British coastline and its vulnerabilities, their raids grew bolder and more organized, leading to the establishment of winter camps and fortified bases. You can look on the left-hand side, and this is a picture of some of the invade and take over of many European countries. But these are the authentic Vikings now. Let's take a look at these people. Let's get a close-up. Whoa! The Black Vikings settled Ireland in 795 AD and established the first Norse kingdom of Dublin, which was founded in 839 AD. In 852, the Black Gentiles were attacked by Finn-Ginti, who arrived in 8 ships. The Finn-Ginti were defeated after 3 days by the Dub-Ginti. See, that's what they called, in a sense, the original Vikings who had settled Ireland. They called them Dub-Ginti. After 3 days of battle, these blacks controlled the Irish coast for much of the 9th century from their center in Dublin. Dub means black. Here again, here's a close-up. Look at these Vikings. See any blonde hair? Wait a minute, where's the blonde hair? Where's the big muscular blonde-haired people? No. That's another lie you've been taught. Lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. That's why we had to do our own research. The Vikings invaded Ireland, and they were blacks. These black Vikings were called Dub-Ginti, or Black Gentiles. In some texts, according to Thomas William Shore, An Origin of the Anglo-Saxon Race, check that book out, it is reported that a large number of black Vikings settled Dublin in 851. Descendants of the Black Vikings often have Black Ablachiman as their surname. The Black Vikings left the Anglo-Saxon names Blachiman, Bergie, Blanchaminstone on the Kiddish coast, and Blachaminstone on the Dorset coast. In the Domesday Survey, this is another book, Domesday Survey, there's mention of black people in Buckinghamshire, Blachiman, Swarthy, Sussex, and Blackimanus, and Swartigas, and so forth. So you can see these names where they're talking about these black people. Yeah, well, some whites were around the area. They had slowly infiltrated in, beginning with the Romans and some of the other people. But as you can see, Britain, Ireland, Scotland, these are mainly black. You see? Now this is how you're black. This is how your Viking really look. They look like this brother. See? Get my book, Blacks in Europe, so you can understand more about our history in Europe. You see, Lee Cummings, again, he talks about the Black Europeans and colonial America in his books. Get his books, The Negro Question, #7, Swarthy Memoirs of a Black American Revolution, 1775 to 1783. Yes, in this book by Cummings, he lets you see that a lot of the so-called people who participated in the development of the revolution, many of them were black. I'm not saying they were good black people. I'm just saying they were black. See, and this was I hated really to look at this stuff. I hated to think of this. I've been taught all my life that white people were the real mean people. White people are the ones that kept us down. But you had black people, in a sense, who were elites who also played a role in keeping us down. See, Very important to remember. And that's why you got to get some of Lee Cummings' work and to find out more about what was going on. In the proclamation of 1665, this began the export of Black Irish to America as slaves. Let me tell you about the Black Irish who were sold as slaves in the 13 colonies. We've been told how the Irish became black, but people never tell you that the original Irish were black and were the original chattel slaves. In 1630, King Charles I of England issued a decree allowing for the enslavement of Irish Catholics and their transportation to the Caribbean as indentured servants or chattel slaves. The decision was primarily motivated by political and economic factors. And what it is that the black Catholics had in a sense massacred some of the the Protestants. So they wanted to get revenge, and that's why these early as early as 1625, 1630, we started to see Black Irish coming over here as in a sense as as chattel slaves. You see. King Charles I did not specifically send Irish Catholic slaves to the English colonies in North America, the 13 colonies in 1630. However, during his reign, there were instances of enslaved Irish convicts being transported to the colonies, albeit not on the scale of the mass enslavement of Irish Catholics in the Caribbean. But again, so you would see these these black Irish, they would be put on ships, and they would be brought to the 13 colonies in the Caribbean to work as chattel slaves, not as indentured servants. They were chattel slaves. That meant that they were slaves for life. The colonization of Ireland by the English, led by King Charles, and the subsequent oppression of the Irish Catholic population led to various forms of forced migration, including chattel servitude and transportation as punishment for political dissent or criminal activity. Some Black Irish Catholics, not enslaved, voluntarily entered into indentured service and forcibly transported as prisoners or political exiles. While there were Black Irish Catholics among the indentured servants and convicts who were made chattel slaves sent to the English colonies, particularly in New England and the Middle colonies, they were not specifically targeted for enslavement on the same scale as the Black Irish sent to the Caribbean. The use of Irish labor in the American colonies was primarily driven by economic considerations and the need for cheap labor to support agricultural and commercial enterprises. In 1630, King Charles I of England issued a decree allowing for the enslavement of Irish Catholics and their transportation to the Caribbean as indentured servants or chattel slaves. This decision was primarily motivated for political and economic factors, you see. During the early 17th century, Ireland experienced numerous uprisings and rebellions against English rule. As the native Irish Catholics sought to resist colonization and assert their independence, King Charles I, seeking to quell these rebellions and strengthen English control over Ireland, implemented harsh measures against the Irish Catholic population. Enslaving Irish Catholics and deporting them to the Caribbean served as a punitive measure to suppress dissent and rebellion within Ireland. Many Black Irish were made chattel slaves because of economic exploitation. The Caribbean colonies, particularly those in Barbados and the West Indies, were lucrative economic enterprises for the English crown and colonial elites. Doraville, he sent me a very good some very good information a couple hours before I did the show, when he talked about, in a sense, the seal of the major slave exporters of England, and how some of their dealings. The plantation economy, based on sugar and tobacco production, required a large and cheap labor force to maximize profits. By forcibly transporting Irish Catholics to the Caribbean as slaves or as indentured servants, King Charles sought to provide the labor needed to sustain and expand the plantation economy. The exploitation of Irish labor contributed to the economic prosperity of the English colonies in the Caribbean at the expense of the enslaved Irish Catholics. It's very important to understand that much of the slavery, much of the transatlantic slave trade was supported by the British royals, not so much in a sense the Stuarts, but especially after King William took over rule in Britain. Uh, when King William came from Germany, he was one of the people to really popularize this whole idea of making the Black Irish and the chattel slaves. But it already began with Oliver Cromwell. The decision to target Irish Catholics for enslavement was also influenced by religious discrimination and anti-Catholic sentiment prevailing in England at the time. As a Protestant monarch, King Charles I viewed Irish Catholics as religious and political adversaries who posed a threat to his authority and the Protestant establishment. Enslaving Irish Catholics and removing them from Ireland was seen as a means of weakening Catholic influence and consolidating Protestant control over the island. Overall, King Charles's decision to make 30,000 Irish Catholics chattel slaves in the Caribbean and 13 colonies in 1630 was largely driven by a combination of political, economic, and religious factors. It represented a brutal form of colonial exploitation and repression, as well as a manifestation of anti-Catholic sentiment and English imperialism during this period. As a result, a lot of the Irish, a lot of Black Scotsmen, they were trying to get it on. They were trying to run away and trying to fight for their survival. In 1631, the Irish Parliament proclaimed St. Patrick's Day as a religious holiday in Ireland. This decision was likely influenced by several factors. Religious significance of St. Patrick's Day, was because it held deep religious significance for the predominantly Catholic population of Ireland as a patron saint of Ireland and the man credited with bringing Christianity to the island. St. Patrick was revered by the Irish people. Making his feast day a holiday allowed them to honor their patron saint in a special and public way. St. Patrick, the beloved patron saint of Ireland, is celebrated for his role in spreading Christianity across the Emerald Isle and for his enduring legacy in Irish culture. Born in Roman Britain in the late 4th century, Patrick was originally named Maewyn Succat. At the age of 16, he was captured by Irish pirates and taken to Ireland as a slave. Excuse me. During his captivity, Patrick worked as a shepherd and spent his days in prayer, which deepened his religious faith. After 6 years, he escaped captivity and returned to Britain, where he received religious instruction and entered the priesthood following a vision. Patrick felt that he was called to return to Ireland as a missionary. Despite the dangerous and challenges that lay ahead, he still went to Ireland to try to spread the Catholic faith. Arriving in Ireland around 432 AD, Patrick began his mission to convert the pagan Irish to Christianity. He traveled extensively throughout the island, preaching the gospel, baptizing converts, and establishing churches and monasteries. Patrick's approach to evangelism was marked by humility, compassion, and respect for the custom and traditions of the Irish people. Yes. See, this would have been how St. Patrick or St. Patty would have looked. See, he was a brother with his cross, with his Bible. One of the most famous legends associated with St. Patrick is the story of how he used the three-leaf shamrock to explain the concept of the Holy Trinity to the Irish pagans. This simple analogy resonated with the people and became a symbol of Ireland's Christian identity. Another legend attributes the banishment of snakes from Ireland to St. Patrick. While it's unlikely that Ireland ever had snakes, the story is often interpreted symbolically, representing the eradication of pagan practices and the triumph of Christianity. Yes. St. Patty and the Shamrocks. St. Patty went around preaching to the other Black Irish He got them, in a sense, to believe in Catholicism. He taught them a strong faith. St. Patrick's efforts were not without opposition, and he faced hostility from local chieftains and Druids who saw Christianity as a threat to their power and influence. Despite these challenges, Patrick's perseverance, and by the time of his death on March 17th, around 461 AD, he had made a profound impact on the religious and cultural landscape of Ireland. Yes, yes, yes. That's what people are going to be celebrating on March 17th. Yes, they're going to be celebrating St. Patrick's Day, St. Paddy's Day. They're going to be celebrating what a black man did in Ireland. St. Patrick was not white. I've already shown you how in a sense, the Irish were black. They were Baradanacs, the foundational Black Britons. They followed this man. They followed this black man, and he spread this faith. In 1631, the Irish Parliament proclaimed St. Patrick's Day as a religious holiday in Ireland. This decision was likely influenced by several factors. St. Patrick's Day held deep religious significance for the predominantly Black Catholic population of Ireland. As the patron saint of Ireland and the man credited with bringing Christianity to the island, St. Patrick was revered by the Irish people. Making his feast day a holiday allowed them to honor their patron saint in a special and public way. This would have been them, these black Irishmen in their, in their parliament proclaiming, the holiday. Yes, 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 Cultural identity. St. Patrick's Day had already been celebrated in Ireland for centuries as a religious feast day and a day of national pride. By officially recognizing it as a holiday, the Irish Parliament affirmed the cultural importance of St. Patrick and the enduring legacy of Irish Christianity. During the early 17th century, Ireland was under British English rule, and tensions between the Irish Catholics and the Protestant English authorities were high. Proclaiming St. Patrick's Day as a holiday could be seen as a statement of Irish identity and resistance against English domination. It provided an opportunity for the Black Irish people to assert their religious and cultural independence. When the British began to colonize the United States, there were still many Black Englishmen like Oliver Cromwell. Over here, you can see on the right-hand side, this is from the library, the British Library, and this is supposed to be an authentic picture of how Oliver Cromwell looked. A Black Englishman, Oliver Cromwell was the governor of Ireland. Oliver Cromwell was the son of a nobleman. He enjoyed a strict Puritan education at the College of the University of Cambridge and then studied law in London. In 1640, Cromwell was a member of Parliament and became the leader of the Puritan opposition to King Charles. Under Cromwell's leadership, he had over 100 victories over the Irish. Large numbers of Black Irish slaves were sold into Caribbean slavery. For example, 50,000 Black Irish slaves a year were sold into slavery in the New World between 1652 and 1656. Cromwell and the Bristol merchants sold at least 100,000 Irish children in addition to the 50,000 a year. They also sold 100,000 Irish children. They were sold as slaves in Virginia and in New England. Yes, yes, yes. They wanted to bring in the children because American slave traders always felt that it was better to get young people, children, because they didn't take up that much space, and so they could get more people. I heard some silly people talking about how could they bring 200,000 people to America? They couldn't have done it. These people are so stupid and ignorant. They don't even understand that they just packed them up on the boat. They didn't care. See, they didn't care. And see, just like today, we see cars. We see all these cars on the street. In England back in the day, they had many boats. Just about a lot of people had boats, so they could bring thousands. They could transfer millions of people across the Atlantic. I don't know why some people are so stupid that they can't really, in a sense, understand the magnitude of the slave trade. In an article named Ship from the Barbados, Cromwell and Irish Migration in the Caribbean, it was noted that from 1630s, official accounts record the arrival of the Irish in the Caribbean. Many of them kidnapped by press gangs operating in the vicinity of the principal ports in Munster. The journey across the Atlantic took almost 3 months, and those who survived the crossing found living and working conditions on the plantations extremely harsh. After 7 years of service, a handful did acquire small landholdings, but none that we know of ever returned to Ireland. The outbreak of the rebellion of 1641 temporarily disrupted the Atlantic trade, but transportation resumed after Cromwell invasion in August 1649. The first shipment occurred towards the end of the year when, after the storming of Dragadu, Oliver Cromwell ordered the few surviving members of the garrison to be sent to Barbados. Over the coming years, thousands of military prisoners were sold. And this is what they said now. They were sold, and this is what he said. It's what Oliver Cromwell said in London. He said they were sold in perpetuity to plantation owners to work in the fields effectively as slaves. Yes, perpetuity. That meant forever. That meant that they weren't chattel slaves. Even though these white Irish people try to say, in a sense, that there were no Irish slaves. Despite the departure of so many soldiers to the continent, at the end of the war, small Tory bands continued to pose a serious, if localized, military threat throughout the 1650s. Yes. You see, that's because of the fact, in a sense, is that Oliver Cromwell were fighting these Black Irish to send them of war. We're prisoners of war. We are descendants of prisoners of war. None of us, no foundational Black Americans, descendant of the slaves, came here free. We were captured in Aboriginal wars in America, or we were captured during the wars between the British Protestants and the Irish Black Catholics, or we were captured in wars between the various African groups in Africa. We are prisoners of war. That is our tradition. That's why we think different from any other Black people on the planet Earth. Because we recognize that we came here as warriors. Let's look at this timeline of foundational Black American, Black Irish history. 1625, King Charles sold 30,000 Irish prisoners as slaves to the New World. 1641, the Irish massacred the Protestants. This got the Protestants very upset, and they said they were going to get revenge. Between 1650 and 1660, hundreds of thousands of Black Irish were sold as slaves to work on the plantations in the British colonies. 1630 to 1660, Aboriginal Black females and Black Irish males mixed on the plantation. Yes, that's how we got our names. Winters, McCoy, etc. 1902, Aboriginal Indians were listed in the Dawes Roll as freemen with English and Irish surnames. Large number of Black Irish slaves were sold into Caribbean slavery. The Black Irish were either exterminated by the English or sold into slavery. In Proclamation 1625 by Herbert L. Berg, he reported that King Charles sent 30,000 Irish prisoners into chattel slavery in Barbados, Montserrat, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, and the 13 colonies of North America. Other Irish slaves were sent to Guyana in 1629, Antigua and Montserrat in 1652. Excuse me. By 1637, 69% of the inhabitants of Montserrat were Black Irish slaves. Yes. Oliver Cromwell was an English general and statesman. I already told you he was born in 1599. Cromwell was a Protestant nationalist, and he hated Catholics. Yes, he hated Catholics. Back in this day, the vast majority of Black British were Catholics. Now many people say, Dr. Winters, why do you want to keep telling us that Oliver Cromwell was black. I looked on the internet, I Googled it, and I saw this white man, and Oliver Cromwell was not black. Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, he was black. In 1640, Oliver Cromwell became a member of Parliament. He became the leader of the Puritan opposition. Okay, here we got some people. Let's go from left to right. On the far left-hand side, we see Miles Davis, the jazz musician. He played jazz. In the middle, we see the Chowder Man. He's a reconstruction of one of the first Britons, and his skeleton is dated back to 1622. I mean, to 10,000 years ago. And here we see a picture of Oliver Cromwell. Look. Miles Davis, Chowder Man, Oliver Cromwell showed the continuity. They were black. Stop it. Do your research. Stop believing everything that you read until you check it out. African slaves were not the first slaves in the British Caribbean in the North. The first slaves were Aboriginal Black Native Americans and Black Irish. The Black Irish slaves usually had to sail to America for 9 to 12 weeks. Yes, it took 9 to 12 weeks to reach the Caribbean. The trip across the Atlantic was harsh, and many blacks died of scurvy, dysentery, and dehydration. To save money, what they would do is they would just throw the Black Irish when they got sick, throw them into the ocean. As a member of Parliament, he became the commander-in-chief. He led most of the wars, and I mean, he was kicking much butt. Oliver Cromwell began to recapture Ireland in 1649. He hated Catholics. He massacred 3,500 in the first battle. 3,500. The rest were sold as slaves to the 13 colonies in the Caribbean. Yes. This was a very evil man. This was a very terrible man. But see, again, this is one of the reasons why I do not claim any religion. I only admit that I have faith in God. I love God. I love all his prophets, may it be Jesus Christ or Muhammad. I even love, in a sense, Buddha. I love everybody, and I love all of God's prophets. But I would not claim any religion because, see, it's claiming these religions, it's claiming these heritages, you see, that lead to problems. See? Oliver Cromwell sold these black people slavery. He didn't see them as black people. He saw them as the enemy. He saw them as Catholic, and he was a Protestant, and he wanted to get rid of them. So he didn't see that. But that's why I advocate what? Being B1. Black first. See? Being black first. Stop all this nationalism. All it does is create disunity. And it can even sometimes lead to murder or worse. African slaves were not the first. And like I told you before, when they got sick, when the Black Irish got sick, they would just dump them overboard. Just like this. See? What did they care? They just felt they could go and get some more. They didn't feel it. See, let me explain to you. When you believe in a religion so much, if you believe in a religion, any religion, or any, if you believe in any ideology, really, you can kill people, and you cannot think about the people who you murder. You won't even think about the people you mistreat, because you're going to feel that you're doing it in the name of God. And because you're doing it in the name of God, then therefore, in a sense, it was right what you did. You see, I couldn't do that. But that's the way some people's hearts are. Some people's hearts are so cold. Some people are so cold that they can't feel for others. Here's a woodcut from back in the day. And if you look on that right-hand side, that bottom woodcut, you can see how they, I didn't do this now, but you see how they painted the Irish women. They painted the Irish women with dark faces. And then, as you can see, they had the British as white. And you can see them taking their babies and throwing them in the lake and throwing them in the river, just killing them. See? I don't have to make this issue up. I don't have to tell you no lies. When they made those Black Irish chattel slaves, they did not care because they felt they belonged to a different religion. They were Protestants. The Black Irish, they were Catholics. They didn't care. Cromwell saw slavery as the perfect way to remove the Catholic blacks from Ireland and Scotland. Cromwell usually worked with Bristol merchants to sell many Irish into slavery, you see. Hundreds of thousands of Black Irish were sold, often in a sense, the men, some of the men, though, they would sell them to places like France and Spain, and they would sell the men so they would fight in the armies of France and Spain, or they would be in the navies. And the reason that these Black Irishmen would fight for these foreign powers is because of the fact that quote unquote Oliver Cromwell told them that they would protect their families, but they didn't even know that they were selling their families in the Caribbean as chattel slaves. But they thought they was doing this to protect their wives and children. No, Oliver Cromwell was an Eva. Man, I'm gonna have to do like the Black Muslims used to say. Oliver Cromwell, he was evil. Take away the E. He was vile. Take away the V. Oliver Cromwell was ill. Yes. He was a dirty man. And this is this is the way the trade was. See, sometimes it came straight from England. Then they went to the Americas. Then they went to the Caribbean. Then back to New England. Then back to the to England and stuff, and Ireland. As I said before, many Irish slaves, they were usually thrown in the ocean. They didn't lose money. And as I told you earlier, they used to go around and just kidnap people. Kidnap them off the street. And then they would kidnap them. They would sell them as slaves in the Caribbean and sell them to as slaves in the 13 colonies. They didn't care. They was out to make money, man. Money, they say money is the root of all evil. No, the root of all evil is greed. It's the greed that men carry that make them do the things they do. See, it's terrible. The Civil War was a turning point in the nationality of blacks. During the Civil War, 200,000 slaves and free colored people fought the Confederates. Many whites had deserted the Union Army, and if not for the enlistment of blacks in the Union Army, the North would have lost the Civil War. The successful defeat of the Confederates led to the creation of many laws that made free blacks and adults, American descendants of slaves, freemen. These laws gave the blacks citizenship. Our primary goal is to know our history. This arrangement resulted from the fact that the chattel slaves in the USA began as Aboriginal people defeated in war by the settlers, or Black Irish and Scotsmen defeated in wars after 1649 in Scotland and Ireland by Oliver Cromwell. As a result, the slave master could not count on Aboriginal and Broadanac slaves to punish their kinsmen. No. See? He couldn't count on that. Plus, he was vicious anyway. He wanted to do a lot of the evil and beating themselves. Irish field hands called themselves slaves because they were the term-bound people, chattel property of the planters who purchased them. They were itemized as the goods and chattels of their masters on contracts and in the state inventories, often beside Negroes, livestock, hardware, and other household goods. Like Negro slaves, they could be sold again and again without their consent, And this is taken from John Donahue, The Curse of Cromwell, Revisiting the Irish Slavery Debate. Get my slides and you can make out better the source. But again, they were the Black Irish. They were considered slaves too. But you got to remember, they didn't refer to Black Europeans as black. They just called them Europeans from whatever nation they came from. Whereas the Africans, they called them Negroes. So Negro was the term that was, that they used to identify African people. If you were a black Catholic, a black German, a black from Portugal, you was just Portuguese. And unless somebody described how you looked individually, you wouldn't even know what nationality they were. But we know in a sense there was many Irish slaves. Here's some These are some statements that from newspapers back during the slave period. Run away from the subscriber living in Lancaster. A native Irish servant woman named Katie Norton, who came from the county of Wicklow in Ireland. Last fall, she is about 25 or 26 years of age, of a dark complexion, has black hair, talks in the Irish dialect, rocks in her walk, and is pretty sharp talking. She is a cunning hussy, and no doubt will pass a while for an honest woman, as she has good clothes with her and can behave herself. Whoever takes up said woman and brings her to the subscriber in Lancaster shall have £3 reward and reasonable charges paid by Robert Fulton. July 6, 1763. Here's another article on some of the Black Irish slaves, and this is from the Virginia Gazette in 1739. Ran away the 8th of July last from the subscriber. Living in Westmoreland County, four serving men viz. John McHugh, Francis Mann, Daniel Fitzpatrick, and John Freeclove. John McHugh, an Irishman of middle stature, swarthy complexion, his hair just cut off, and a blacksmith by trade. He has on one of his arms a bleeding heart pricked with gunpowder, and a name had lit with several other letters. He had on which he went away, and blew his gray coat and breeches, you see. And then we see Francis Mann is an Englishman of a middle stature, swarthy complexion, short brown hair, and yellowish rotten teeth. Speaks quick and full mouth. He is a little lame, says one of the legs. So again, as you can see, they were Irish slaves. So I'm not making this stuff up. When I talk to you, family, I bring you the receipts. See, I don't just make up stuff. I do the research. And I'm looking for more people who want to be able to do great research, who want to be able to tell our stories. I hope that these people will join me in my research class. And my research class is going to begin April 16th. Let's review. The first chattel slaves beginning around 1625 were Black Irish. These Black Irish slaves were on plantations throughout the 13 colonies. The Black Irish mated with the Aboriginals, or Black Indians, beginning around 1625. As a result, between 1625 and 1670, the chattel slaves were Black Irish and Black Indians. As members of these populations were getting married, foundational Black Americans adopted English and Irish surnames. By the 1800s, as a result of runaway slaves finding freedom among Southern Black Indians and the interstate slave trade, FBA chattels from the North Carolina, and Virginia, were sold to planters in the Deep South, and Irish names spread among the Aboriginals. It was in this way that we got our Irish surnames. Yes, top of the morning to me, and top of the morning to you. The FBA never forgot their tribal origins and identities. The Aboriginal Indians were listed in the Dow's Roll as freemen. The Dow's Roll, also known as the Finals Rolls, was a list of individuals who were accepted as eligible for tribal membership in the 5 civilized tribes: the Cherokee, Creeks, Choctaw, Chickasaws, and Seminoles. Listing the Aboriginals as freemen was done to ensure that they would not be given any benefits due them as a result of their membership in the 5 civilized tribes. But this is just to show you that they said, hey, I'm a Cherokee, I'm a Creek, I'm a Choctaw. But see, the European is always trying to be funny, They like to make jokes with us. Here we have seen that there were many Black Irish slaves. These slaves mated with Aboriginal and African chattel slaves. It was here that their descendants adopted Irish and British surnames. David McRitchie was the first researcher to note that your surname often goes back to a Black ancestor. He wrote that, and I quote, "But if the Negro ancestor of such a 9/10 white man had lived amidst a white population whose ideas with regard to the nomenclature were as primitive as those of our ancestors 1,000 years ago, his offspring would have eventually become known by some such name as Black or Negro, used as a surname. Precisely the same thing was actually happened here. We know as a historical fact that a nigger Van Doob has lived and reigned over certain black divisions of our island, and probably over white divisions also. See, so you can see in a sense that he was the first one to say, "Hey, your surname didn't come from your master." A good example is President George Washington. George Washington, he's supposed to be, everybody got their slave names from their master, and yet we know that George Washington, he was raping Sally. I think it was what, Sally Hemings. If we all got our surnames from our master, why didn't Sally Hemings? Why wasn't her name Sally Washington? No, we didn't get our names from our master. Your master didn't want you taking his name. He felt that would have been a damn disgrace. Mac Ritchie added that the fact is that most of our surnames are so old that while they argue with considerable force that this or that man is descended from such and such a race, they give us no help in finding out the predominating blood. Everyone, unless the child of cousins germane, is possessed of eight great grandparents, but the patronymic only shows the descent from one of them. The other 7 are woefully ignored, so that if one's pedigree is not complete enough to point out clearly and with authenticity a feature which, though the most important, is perhaps the oftenest disregarded. Every line of the descent back to the days when each surname had a meaning, the genealogy is only a partial value in any argument of this kind. Nevertheless, the names exist, and with those of topography and of usage already quoted, and with many a record in written and oral history, they emphatically tell us of a large section of our ancestry whose complexion was black. Yes, yes, yes. See? But our surnames didn't come from our masters. No, it didn't come from our masters. There was continuity between the Moors and Egyptians. Look at this picture. On the left hand side, we see a Moor, and he's supposed to be the ancestor of various people had this as their heraldry or crest, and you can see he wore the same headband that you find on the ancient Egyptians. In that middle picture, continuity. It's very interesting. No, is that many black people, even though the Egyptians and this Black Irishman was separated by thousands of years, you can still see that continuity. It's almost like when you look at the Yamasis and you see a lot of brothers wearing do-rags back in the 1700s, and, a lot of brothers over the summer, they wear do-rags here too, But see, we can look at some of this authenticity. See, in the Black American Handbook for Survival through the 21st century, this carry a list of many of the black members of the 5 civilized tribes. Okay, right over here you can see Moor. This is the heraldry or the crest of the Moors. This is the crest of the Buller, the Glean, the Manor, the Malay, the Moors, the Mordad, the Morgan, the Moor. So this is the Moor. And then when we go to the Black American Handbook for Survival through the 21st century, The Forgotten Truth Behind the Racism in America, The Secret Heritage of America by Ray Dean A. America, what do we find? We find, oh, wait a minute. Under the Cherokee, what do we see? We find Moors, yes. We find Moor. We find Morgan. You see? Our surnames didn't come from our masters. Hell no. Mac Ritchie in Volume 2, Martin Britton's, he quotes this: the winners of Northumberland is described by country people who remember him as a tall, powerful man of dark complexion. Well, wait a minute. Are they talking about me? I'm a winners. I'm a tall man, powerful, dark complexion. And then when you go to what? When you go to the America's Handbook for Survival, who do you see in there? Well, wait a minute. What? There you see Winters. Look at this. We didn't get our names from our masters. A lot of those names came from our Black Irish ancestors who were chattel slaves on the plantation. Those crests are your crests. These crests take you back to the day. Here's a Delaware Black Indian. And this is up for the Cherokee Nation, but this is on the Delaware roll from the Dawes list. You see, the Black Irish and Black Indians met as chattel slaves in New England. This led to many Aboriginals having Irish surnames. As a result, FBA freemen and Black Indians will be listed on the Dawes roll with Irish surnames. Like, look at this. Here we see somebody named William. They're on the Dawes list. See, we can see it even better here. Cherokee Nation, Delaware roll, you can see there. See where it says William up there? You know. See? And these things, in a sense, go back. And this is just to show the continuity. It's just to show how we didn't get our surnames from our masters. We got our surnames, in a sense, from our ancestors. Many of them were Black Irish. These Black Irish, while they were chattel slaves, they made it with the Aboriginals. And that's why many of the Aboriginals had these daggone names. Winters, Moore, McCoy, McKenzie, etc. That's where they came from. There was estimated 200,000 Black Irish sold into slavery. More than that, really. Between 1651 and 1660. That's not even counting 100,000 Black Irish children that they sold over here. Many Blacks who live in the United States today have a direct European heritage. This class of FBA would mainly be descendants of Catholics, of the Black Irish. We went over the timeline. Millions of acres of Black Irish land was stolen by the British. This means that FBA freemen, given their Irish ancestors, owe money for the land taken away from their ancestors. As a result, whites don't want FBA to know about their Irish ancestry because they are due payment for the land stolen from them. Yes, 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 yes. See, you may ask the question, what happened to all these? What happened to all these paintings of Black people? Why we just see white people? I'm going to tell you about it. Paintings of the Baradinaks or Blacks of Britain were purposely destroyed by Thomas Cromwell, who hated Catholics and Blacks generally. You know, it was an article written by this guy named Silwood in 2015. He wrote that against the backdrop of Henry VII's marital strife, Henry VIII, the pathologically ambitious Cromwell single-handedly masterminded the break with Rome in order to hand Henry the church with all his important divorce. Flushed with the success of engineering Henry's first divorce, Cromwell moved on to confiscating the church's money. He added that with lazy strokes of the pen, he condemned royalty, nobles, peasant nuns, and monks to horrific summary executions. Yes, yes. This Thomas Cromwell was killing off a lot of Black Irish elites. He was killing them off. He was taking their land, taking their castles, taking their estates, and he was giving them to white people. That's why you found a lot of Black Irish who were killed off and a lot of rich Black Catholics who were British. They got rid of them. They took their land. See, Thomas Cromwell had a direct impact on the disappearance of art depicting Baradinaks. Selwood in 2015 wrote, and I quote, "And then there is the impact on the country's artistic and intellectual heritage. No one can be sure of the exact figure, but it's estimated that the destruction started by Cromwell amounted to 97% of the English art then in existence. Statues were hacked down. Frescoes were smashed to bits. Mosaics were pulverized. Illuminated manuscripts were shredded. Wooden carvings were burned. Precious metalwork was melted down. Shrines were reduced to rubble. This vandalism went way beyond a religious reform. It was a frenzy obliterating the artistic patrimony of centuries of indigenous craftsmanship with an intensity of hatred for imagery and depicting the divine that has strong and resonant parallels today." Yes, yes, yes. This man destroyed a lot of it. And see, because he was attacking the Catholics, he was taking away the history of the Black Irish, the Black Scotsmen. He was taking away the paintings. He was taking away the pictures so that they could repaint all these people as being white Caucasians. You see? There are an estimated 200,000, slow. In summary, the vast majority of Black Europeans came to America as chattel slaves of Irish and Scottish descent. These slaves, numbering in the tens of thousands, worked on rice and tobacco plantations and sugar plantations in the South and the Caribbean. These Black Europeans over time were absorbed in the descendants of enslaved FBA who were freed with the 14th Amendment. Other Black Europeans from Britain, Germany, Norway, Spain, and Portugal came to the USA as freemen or indentured servants. Other Black Europeans came here as Huguenots, crypto Moors, and Sephardic Hebrews. Some of these Blacks remained Afro-Americans, while most married Caucasian women, and over time they passed for white and were absorbed into the dominant population, but we don't care about them, you see, because these people, in a sense, they didn't identify as Black anyway. Our emphasis is on those Black Irish who became chattel slaves. Thank you. It is clear that many of our surnames are Black Irish and Scotsman origin. We did not get all our surnames from our masters. Again, go to my Patreon and see the slides. I'm going to put these slides on my Patreon. Join my Patreon so you can get the slides and you can get more information. And you can look at the sources for this presentation. You can find me on Twitter at Dr. Clyde Winters 8. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on TikTok.com at Clyde Winters 3. I've got a lot of shorts on TikTok. Check them out. Be supportive. This is my YouTube channel, Clyde Winters Afrocentric History YouTube. Please, support the videos here. Look at my videos here. Order my books on Amazon.com. Please join my Patreon. It's the members of my Patreon that allow me to bring you this good research every week. If you want to find out more about the Baroda or the foundation of Black Britons, get my book, Blacks in Europe, from Prehistory to Contemporary Times. And my book, History of the Blacks in America, from Prehistory to 1877, really go up to the 1960s. In this book, you can find out more about those Black Irish and how they were integrated into the slave plantation and how they became chattel slaves. So get my book, History of Blacks in America, from Prehistory 1877. And my book, Manufactured Genetic Origin, the Fake Eurasian Back Migration. This book will tell you about how the Europeans only got to Europe around 1000 BC and how much of what you've been taught about them is a lie. Also get my book, History and Culture of the Black Aboriginals in America. This book is my latest book. It is a fantastic book. It's the only book, in a sense, that will tell you the history of the Black Aboriginals, who were the indigenous people of the United States, you see. I talk about our pyramids. I talk about the stone roads. I talk about all of our architecture, our structures. The book is 489 pages. It's like an encyclopedia. It's the only book that you're going to find out about the history and culture of the Black Aboriginals in America, because they always pretend as that the only Black Indians were slaves of some of the red man. This is false. If you want to find out more about Black civilization in Asia, get my books. Get my books, Black History Gem Essays, Black History Gem Essays, Volume 1, Volume 2. I have in there a lot of articles about the Paleo-Americans and other ancient Black people that lived in the Americas. Get Black History Gems Essays, Volume 1 and 2. Help you out. And of course, my book, The World History of the Black Race. This book will tell you about every Black civilization that ever existed on the planet Earth. Check this out. Okay, again, me and Sister Shanice on April 29th, we're going to start teaching part 2. We already did part 1 and of the Black British History course, and we delivered this up until a few weeks ago. Now we're going to do part 2, and it's going to begin the 29th of April. If you want to take this course, it's going to be every Monday, beginning on the 29th of April. It's going to be from 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. That's British time. See, we're talking about 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. British time. So that's around 1:30 That's 1:30 p.m. in the Central Standard Time. If you're interested in taking this course, it costs 199 pounds. You know, that's about $205, something like that. You can go to https:// Sister Shanice gumroad.com/L/FUPFU. And then if it's a discount. It's a $40 discount if you join the class before April. And if you want to get this discount, you go to https:// sistershanice.gumroad.com/L/FUPFU/early bird. That's how you get the part two Black British History course is going to last for 6 weeks, and you're going to learn a whole lot about new information on, the history of Black people in Britain. Also, I'm going to start in April my 15-week Afrocentric Research Course. This course is going to start at April 16th. It's going to be from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And in this course, you're going to learn how to do research and other things. And I hope that you'll join the class. If you want to join my researcher course, it's $599, but it's for 15 weeks. 15 weeks, mind you. If you want to pay the entire $599 at one time, go to Clyde98.gumroad.com/L/GBWRJR. Now, but if you want to pay on a monthly basis and pay for the course over a 3-month period, $199 a month for 3 months, go to Clyde98.gumroad.com/L/OLZVX. Check it out in V Square. Okay. B1 Black first. And, I hope you guys enjoyed this. But let's look at a little. How you doing, Dayon Epps, Timbo South, MBW KMTK SPKTRM Incorporated. How you doing? Carol Asbaram. How you doing? I want to show a couple of commercials before we get back into to. If you have any questions, save them and put them in the chat, and I'll try to answer them. Get my book, Blacks. Hey, I've just written a new book, History and Culture of the Black Aboriginals of America. Yes, I've written a new book. This book is called History and Culture of Afro-Americans. It's about the Aboriginal Americans. It's about the first people who inhabited America. Many people don't know about our great culture, this super culture that we created, but I discussed this book. In 489 pages, you'll find out so much information, great information, about, in a sense, what the Aboriginal foundational Black Americans did. You're going to see, in a sense, that Black people contributed much here. When the first Europeans got here, that's what they found. Yes, they found Black Aboriginals inhabiting the Americas. It was the Black Aboriginals that built this country. This is why you had to get my book. Get my book, History and Culture of the Aboriginal Blacks of the Americas. In this book, you will find out the truth. You will know what we created. You will know who we are. Get this book. Buy it now. Today is today. We need to homeschool our children due to white supremacy. In many states, education departments are passing laws to deny our children from learning the history of foundational Black Americans. Today, you can learn how to organize and teach your children in a homeschool. In my book, A Guide to Homeschool Foundational Black Americans. You can use my book, History of Blacks in America from Prehistory to 1877, to teach our children their history here in the United States. you can use my book to teach world history. And this book I've written is called The World History of the Black World. This will teach your children about every Black civilization in the world. Get this book. The time is now. Get these books to teach your children about their greatness, to prevent them from losing confidence in their own ability to learn and be successful future adults in employment and education. Hey, it's time for the Afrocentric Research Course led by Dr. Clyde Winters. Join this course. The 15-week Afrocentric Research Course will begin on April 16, 2024. It will last between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can go to clyde98.gumroad.com/L/ to join the class. The Afrocentric Researcher course is vital. In this course, you will learn how to do research. It will help you to write and conduct research. You see, you're going to learn how to do research. You're going to learn how to interpret research literature. And you're going to learn how to write books and articles. Yes, books and articles. And you're going to learn how to use research data to improve your small business. Already, in a sense, many former students have begun to write articles and books that they published. You too can write these articles and books after you take my class. You can make a single payment of $599. You can go to clyde98.gumroad.com/L/ZBWRJR, or you can make monthly payments. Go to clyde98.gumroad. Join me for my 15-week Afrocentric Researcher course. It's going to be the class that's going to help you to really be a success. It's going to start April 16, 2024, 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Join us. Join us in this class. Learn how to do research. It's up to you. Okay, again, you know how everybody doing? How you doing, Tones 5? Zachary Holmes, what up, though? You know, again, in a sense, I hope you guys, got something from this lecture. I tried to make sure, in a sense, that I could tell you who we are. And I want you to understand is that it's more to our history than just the fact that we're all from Africa. Many of us did come from Africa, and some of I've been looking over I've done some research on my ancestors. I know the Winters. I know that they came from North Carolina. Then, their master, took them to, in a sense, Mississippi. But the thing is that, just because some of them, your master's name was Winters, that doesn't mean you got your name from your master, because see, many of the Winters owned Winters, but they were able, in a sense, to steal their land over in Ireland and steal their land in Britain. If you guys got any questions, you can put them in the chat and I'll try to answer them. Okay, here's the question. What is the Gaelic? And this is the language. This is the Irish people language. What I found is that my research, I found that many of the words in this language relate to the Mandi language. And I did an article on that I published. If you can send me an email at omec982000@yahoo.com, and I'll send you a copy of it, where you can see the relationship between these languages. Okay. Timbo asked a question. Hey, Doc, Chinese professor Jim Canrong recently came out and said they say the West made up Aristotle because the first time he was mentioned is in the 13th century. The thing is that I don't know. I can't really go into that. I haven't done any research on the various Greek scholars. I know that some of these Greeks would have been Caucasian. Other Greeks would have been Black Greeks, especially the Athenians were known as being Black. Okay, Timbo, another question. Yeah, Doc, did you get my email on the image of the Melkite Coptic Egyptians? No, but you can send it to me. I don't think I didn't get it. You know. Here's a comment by Dorvell. I think the slave ships were destroyed by two wars, 1812 and the Civil War. We know they destroyed the Clotilda to hide their evil deeds. No, they didn't destroy them. Let me explain to you, Dorvell. This is it: is that any ship could be a slave ship. You know, back in the day, and if you really do some research, if you really do some research on your ancestors, you'll be surprised. It might end up to some of your ancestors. Yes, if you go and do some research, you might be surprised and find out that some of your ancestors were trading in slaves. What it was is that back in the day, all people would get a ship, and if they got a ship, if they wanted to get a come up, if they wanted to get a bag, they would get a ship. And what they would do, in a sense, they would either go to Africa and kidnap some sub-Saharan Africans and enslave them over here. You see, you know, and so all you had to do is get a ship. Any ship could be a slave ship. A lot of times, the image that we see of the slave ships when they had rows and rows of slaves on various decks, that was something that the abolitionists made up. There may have been some slave ships that looked like that, but the average slave ship was just a regular old ship. You just got a lot of just went there, and then you kidnapped some people, and then you tried to bring them back over here. And so they didn't have to really, in a sense, they didn't have to really, do anything like that, yeah. And so Dorvell says I have 18% Irish DNA. That's not surprising. I tell you, that's not surprising. But see, back in the past, Dorvell, back in the past, if you would have said that, then people would have said that you were trying to be white. But now we know that you carried some of that because of the fact that there were chattel slaves, in a sense, who in a sense were Black Irish people. They would have been carrying this DNA. See, the whole problem is that DNA was supposed to be the savior of Europeans. Europeans thought that by getting the DNA, they were going to be able, in a sense, to finally prove that even though these blacks, quote unquote skeletons that they found in Egypt, or they found in Mesopotamia, that they found as a Sumer and all that type of, they were hoping that was going to be able, in a sense, for them to say, oh, these people were white. But now we know, in a sense, is that just about every genetic haplogroup is of African origin. And see, the basic problem with these Europeans is that they want to ignore the fact. So they want to ignore the fact that the Moors ruled much of Europe, especially Iberia, but they ruled much of Europe from 711 AD to 1492. That's almost 1,000 years, you see. But the Europeans, they want to ignore this period. And the reason they want to ignore this period is because of the fact that, in a sense, is that they don't want to, in a sense, they don't want to acknowledge, you see, that it was black people that made the civilization. Yeah, another thing, Dorvell, the reason that they destroyed the Clotilda is, remember, it was against the law. As part of the Constitution, it was against the law to import slaves from Africa or anywhere else, you see, after I think, 1805 or something like that. And so that's why they destroyed the Clotilda, because the Clotilda, in a sense, was an illegal ship, and that's why they destroyed it, burned it up over in Alabama. They weren't trying to hide nothing. They didn't care. Damn, like I told you, anybody that had a ship could go and get some slaves. I know Dr. Short, we were talking, and he was surprised, because he was trying to look and find out about his ancestors. He was surprised to find out that one of his ancestors, in a sense, had sold slaves, was a slave trader. But see, as I said before, a lot of times that's how people got to come up. Just think about this. You could go to Africa. I wouldn't have did this because I'm a B1 brother. You could go to Africa. You could steal some people from Africa, and you could come back over here and sell them for $200 to $1,000. That was a lot of money, man. You see? So a lot of people, they would get a boat, go over there and buy some slaves in Africa, bring back those enslaved people here, and they could make a bag, and they could use that money. See, they could use the money that they earned from selling those slaves to start other businesses, So so it was a way. It was a come up. It was a way to get an easy bag. Okay, Team Zulu. Team Zulu. He wrote in a sense, thinking the DNA thing is to protect and show that the Yiddish have a connection to Israel. No. The Yiddish, the Ashkenazis, they don't have any connection to the Palestinians. That's why I was reading this article. That's one of the reasons that the Ashkenazis, they never really talk about the DNA of the people of the Ashkenazi or the Yiddish people, because of the fact they don't carry any they don't carry Middle Eastern genes. Remember, the Ashkenazis were Europeans. You see, remember, the Ashkenazis, in a sense, they started worshiping the Jewish religion in protest. You see. But Ashkenazis, they don't carry DNA. In fact, it's even videos on the internet that explain they don't go into that DNA stuff in Israel, because if you start looking at the DNA of the Ashkenazis, the DNA they carry is purely European, because they came from Europe. See, so they wouldn't carry Middle Eastern DNA. But again, like I said, I wanted to do this program, and so if any of you want to go out and celebrate, tonight or Saturday night, then you want to go out and get drunk and say that you're celebrating your Irish heritage, you may be telling the truth, there, matey. You may be telling the truth, yeah, lassie, because hey, we do have the Black Irish in us, many of us, you see. So I can't say that you don't have any Black Irish. Because they were the Black Irish here. Yes, they were. They were here. About that language thing, Sister Shanice, she wrote a very interesting article. I think it's published but she wrote a very interesting article where she showed that patois. She said that patois is patois, in a sense, is related to the Gaelic, or the old Irish language, Gaelic. So you should consult that article. Okay, so I don't see any questions. Well, if there's no questions, the MBWKNTK SPKTRM Incorporated said, he says, which book you wrote teach about our 5 tribes and how the government utilized eugenics to change the way they look on the phenotype. I talk about the 5 civilized tribes, but they didn't do anything to change the phenotype. I mean, the Aboriginal blacks were just like black people today. Some light skin, some dark skin, some with straight hair, some with kinky curly hair. Remember, there was no one big Aboriginal Black Indian group, And see, the thing is, this is that they didn't change the phenotype. What they did is they would never refer to the Aboriginal Black people by their tribal names. See, whenever in a sense they took away land from the Aboriginals, they would call them free colored people. You've been taught that when they talked about free colored people, you've been taught that in a sense they were talking about people who were freed from slavery. They didn't free hardly nobody from slavery because they was making too much money. The word free colored people, that word in a sense referred to, the Aboriginal Black people. Those were the free colored people. That's why you can see that's why you see in New England, you kept seeing the free colored population increasing. The free colored population was increasing because every time they was able to steal entirely the land of the Black Aboriginals, they would just start calling them free colored people. That's where the term free colored people came from. It didn't come from people who were freed from slavery. Because they didn't hardly manumit people and all that type of stuff. It was just all in Dorvell said, I didn't inherit the accent. Oh, if you don't inherit the accent, I didn't inherit the accent. I just look at a lot of the movies. Look at a lot of the movies. Look at Star Trek and others. And oh, get me an aire lingo. But Sister Shanice has shown that patois, when you compare patois to the original Gaelic language or the way the Gaelic people spoke English back in the day, you find that there's a close relationship between patois. That's the language that the Jamaicans speak. That's their Creole language. That you can see a relationship between that and Gaelic. You know. Well, you know. So again, it's knowledge is power. I hope you guys will buy some of my books, and I hope in a sense that you will support this channel. I hope you'll tweet this out to some of your friends, get other people to check out this video. We need more and more people to understand who we are. We need more and more people to understand that we're not just from Africa, that we do have, in a sense, a great, past, that we're not just, in a sense, one group of people. We've got to remember, in a sense, is that just because we have these Western names, these British names, these Scottish names, these Irish names, those names didn't always come from our masters. These names came, in a sense, from our Black Irish ancestors who, in a sense, had joined Aboriginal groups or who had remained on the plantation for years and years and years and stuff. But thank you for showing up. I hope, in a sense, that what you do is support me. But I also like you to support Yoshimod. Yoshimod, he created the great introduction. Clyde Winters, the video I play before all of my shows, and I think you should support him. He's written some very important PDFs that you can use to teach your children Black history. Please support Yoshimod.
Hey V1 family, I'm excited to tell you about something super special and educational. This Black History Month, Yoshimod has created an amazing collection of PDFs all about incredible Black inventors and their amazing achievements. Do you know about Mae Jemison, the first FBA woman astronaut? Or Percy Julian, who made groundbreaking discoveries in chemistry? These are just a couple of the amazing people you'll learn about in these PDFs. These PDFs are perfect for teachers, homeschooling parents, or anyone who loves learning. They're filled with fun facts and inspiring stories that make learning about Black history exciting. Only $3 for a journey through history with some of the most influential Black inventors and scientists. Just click the link in the description to grab your copies from Yoshimod's Gumroad store. And don't forget to check out Yoshimod's other amazing creations and music on Spotify. Let's learn, have fun, and celebrate Black history together.
That's right. Check out Yoshimod. Yoshimod he's got some great stuff, and this stuff is very important. He's got music, he's got everything. Also, if you got a website or you got a small business and you want to have your small business or website, that's outstanding. Like, he does a lot of work, and so check him out. This is some of the services that Yoshimod offers.
At Yoshimod Productions, we're here to take your brand and creativity to new heights. From EPKs to AI commercials, animated music commercials to animated AI bios, book covers to picture flyers, and so much more, we've got you covered. Our team is dedicated to delivering high-quality, cutting-edge designs that leave a lasting impression. And for our valued clients, we offer exceptional creativity, a customer-centric approach, and work that reflects the latest trends and technologies. Just about making art, we're about creating experiences. Your brand, your vision, our artistry. Professionalism and reliability are the cornerstones of everything we do. We're more than a service, we're your creative partners. If you're ready to make your brand shine, look no further than Yoshimod Productions. Join us in the journey of creativity. Contact us today and let's make your vision a reality.
Okay. Here's one more question from Carol. Carol said, "What language did the Black Irish speak before the Europeans came? They spoke Gaelic, and Gaelic, and even British, even English. You got to remember that Gaelic and English, at the base of Gaelic and English is in a sense, Semitic languages and also the Egyptian language. Yes, yes, yes. Many words in a sense in the English language and in Gaelic go back to ancient Egyptian and the Semitic languages. And so then and see that's why if you really studied English language, you would see that the old English is different from modern English. In fact, when you study the the views, the various the way English was spoken at various times, you can see the differences. In fact, even today in England, you'll be surprised that there are a number of English dialects. So it's very complicated, you know. Also, also in a sense is that Dorvell says that it would have been Niger Congo. Yeah, it would have been the Niger Congo languages, mainly because of the sense the Niger Congo languages were some of the main languages of the people who later settled. Remember the Egyptians, the Phoenicians, the Celts. A lot of these people, in a sense, who formed the English, the British, and the Irish population. They came directly either from Africa or they came from Iberia, because see a lot of times people would cross in a sense from Morocco into Iberia, or what we call Spain and Portugal today, and from there they would sell a ship up to Britain. Because see Britain was known for copper, tin, and stuff like that, so they had a lot of mining operations that have been used for hundreds, even thousands of years. Again, thank you guys for showing up. Put a like to the video. Join my Patreon. Please support me. Buy my books. Join my courses. I look forward to seeing you guys next Thursday. But I'll be doing me and Yoshi will be doing we'll be doing a video then and now on Sunday night. But if you want to get more history, join me again every Thursday at 3 p.m. On my channel. Don't be square. Catch the live. Bye, guys. Have a great evening.